Hi, it's Susan Milner with Florida Future Realty, and today I wanted to discuss taking your real estate exam. I meet with a lot of people or speak with a lot of people who are thinking about getting their real estate license to start their real estate career, and they're a little nervous about taking the test. It may be that they've heard from somebody that it's very difficult, or someone failed before or failed once or twice, three times, or maybe never was able to pass the test, and they're a little nervous about the test. Myself, I've been lucky. I am a good test taker, I guess you could say, but I know that's not always the case with a lot of people. A lot of people get nervous at taking tests. They know it's time, they know that their questions are going to be challenging. And so I wanted to just create this video to kind of give you some tips and tricks. A lot of you may be, fresher out of, say, high school or college than other people, and test taking may be easier for you, but if test taking has been a challenge for you, or it's been so long since you've taken a test and you kind of want some pointers, this video would be for you. One of the first things that I like to do when I take a test is to just kind of, breathe and, clear out my mind. I normally, right before a test, do a little cram session, and I know that some people will tell you that's a really bad idea, but for me it works. I have a semi-photographic memory, you could say, so if I flip through something, I can pretty much remember a lot of what I just, looked at, and that will show like a picture in my head. Not everyone has that, but if you do, I definitely recommend taking advantage of that. Literally, like the hour before you take your test, 10 minutes before you take the test, you're sitting in the parking lot ready to go up to the test taking center. You just do that really quick, and it'll just refresh things in your mind, especially those things that have been a little difficult for you during studying, getting things confused and stuff like that, to refresh your mind right away. It gives you a little boost of confidence before you go into the test taking center. So I definitely recommend that. And then when I get there and I'm all signed in and everything, I just kind of like breathe and release and make sure that I'm not anxious or anything like that. And so then I start taking the test. And generally speaking, these tests are done on computers, at least here locally they are, so you don't have a piece of paper where you're looking at it. They usually do supply a scrap piece of paper and a couple pencils, or you can bring your own. You need to check with the test facility to see how it works out, but generally speaking, a couple of blank pieces of paper and a pencil you're able to have in a calculator. So you should have those items with you, and here's some tips. So what I recommend is reading a question, covering up, like you can cover it up right on the computer screen. You cover up the answers and you just read the question, and I read it 2 times. So read the question twice and don't look at any of the answers. And in your mind, go ahead and think about what the answer is. And then uncover the answers. And if you see the answer that you just thought, I would go with that and I would check that one off. Now, do this with every question. If you get to a question and you just have no idea and you're like, I don't know, take your scrap piece of paper and jot down like the number, like if it's number 20, you write that down on your piece of paper and know that you need to go back to that one. I'd recommend go ahead and just selecting something, because if for some reason you run out of time at the end, at least you've got a 1 in 4 chance of maybe getting it right if you do run out of time. But you probably won't run out of time on the Florida real estate exam, because they give you 3 hours, which is totally enough time for these questions. So do that. Anytime that you're unsure and you think it could be B or C, I always go with my first kind of thought on that. And, the reason why is because studies show that after, they go back and they really just start confusing themselves, over half of the times that they change it, they were right the first time. So I would just keep that if you're, pretty sure but unsure. Sometimes what happens during the test is that you get, say like number 20 was that problem one that you had, and you get to number 40 and they're talking about the same thing. The answer could actually be in the question. So if they have reworded the question in a way that that answer's there, you can remember, oh, yeah, that was number 20. You had written it down here. And then you can go back to that afterward and you have your answer. So think about that, because a lot of times they kind of ask you the same questions in different ways, and sometimes depending on how the question was worded, the answer's actually in it for another one of the questions. So that's something to keep in mind. When you get to the math section, if you're taking the real estate salesperson, there's only going to be like 10 questions on the math section. And you want to make sure that you're right. They're going to have specific answers in there that are going to be like a mistake, a common mistake that a lot of people make. And so you're going to be like, oh yeah, I got it right. Here's my answer. Make sure you double check. One super duper easy way to double check a math problem is to work it backward. Work it backward from the answer and make sure that it gets back to the problem. Make sure that if they're talking about prorations, you know whether they're prorating as a yearly basis or a 30-day month basis. That's a really important. They'll try to trick you on that also. Also, back to just the regular questions, they're going to try to trick you. They're going to have something in there where if you missed one word in that question, or it takes you somewhere else, that there's another answer there that's gonna that's why I really suggest you read it 2 times. Think about the answer before you look at all the choices. I think that those tips will help you a lot. One other thing to keep in mind is after you've written down notes of all the questions that you weren't quite sure on, you can count those, and if it's under, say, like 15, I wouldn't even go back and check them. Because if you're going to get an 85 at least, even if you miss those 15 that you weren't sure about, why go back and stress yourself and then start changing your answers and then maybe looking at other questions and getting really confused? I would just walk away from it and go let them grade your test. So that's kind of another thing, so that you don't get all flustered about it, is just to, is there's less than like 15 or maybe even 20, because I think you have to, depending on where you're at, you have to score like a 70 or 75. If you've only maybe missed 10, don't go back and look at them. You're just going to get yourself all kinds of confused, and then you're going to say, well, maybe this is the answer here, and then maybe I got another one wrong here, and you're going to get yourself all worked up. So if you've only put marks on like 10, 15, maybe even 20 things, don't go back. So that's my tip, and hopefully you pass on the first try and you don't have to stress about it. Just keep in mind these simple tips, and I'll talk to you next time about choosing a real estate brokerage to work for. Again, this has been Susan Milner with Florida Future Realty. We're located in Cape Coral, and I'm always looking to hiring happy and motivated agents. So if you have any questions, give me a call.